Sergei Shoigu has expressed concern to military high command about the US conducting unscheduled maneuvers near Russia's borders. RT correspondent Roy Gazdiev explains the situation.
Russia, as you said, is voicing growing concern about what is happening, unfolding in the Black Sea. And you judge for yourself. For nigh on 2 weeks, USS Porter, which is a guided missile destroyer of the United States Navy, has been sailing about the Black Sea with its armament of capacity of 100 guided missiles of various types. Then you had a USS tanker, USS John Lenthal, supply and oil tanker come into the Black Sea to make sure that the other vessels are able to operate for an extended period of time. And this is all happening right on Russia's doorstep. You had that joined by USS Mount Whitney, which is a command ship of a strike force, the United States Sixth Fleet flagship. So in essence, the United States is saying that this is all part of a training exercise with its partners in the Black Sea region. Russia says that what is happening is destabilizing the security of the whole region.
The U.S. is creating a multinational grouping of armed forces within the immediate vicinity of the Russian border.
More than that, there have been flybys. There have been B-1B strategic bombers of the United States, which are capable of carrying nuclear missiles. And the Russian Ministry of Defense says that they have been practicing bombing runs as close as 100 kilometers away from the Russian border. And they say it is evident that they are studying the battleground. Then the United States, Ukraine, Georgia, Romania, Bulgaria and Turkey joined the exercise in the event that there's an escalation in
our business.
China is using what appears to be mock U.S. naval warships as target practice, raising concerns from U.S. officials about the country's military buildup and increasingly realistic training as tensions with the U.S. increases over Taiwan. Here now is RT's John Huddy.
At a glance, it looks like maybe a runway or some kind of strange desert outpost or even farmland. But taking a closer look at these satellite pictures, and the story becomes clearer. China has apparently built mock-ups of U.S. naval warships to reportedly be used for ballistic missile target practice in a remote part of the desert in the western Xinjiang region. The Colorado-based satellite imagery company Maxar Technologies took the shots showing not only the shape of a new Ford-class nuclear aircraft carrier, but also what appears to be a model of a class carrier on what looks like railway tracks to enable its movement. There also appears to be at least 2 Arleigh Burke-class naval destroyers, all positioned in a part of the desert used by China's military as a missile range. U.S. officials have raised concerns about China's military buildup, particularly the recent test of its hypersonic missile system that General Mark Milley, chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, called, quote, very concerning. This as tensions between the U.S. and China continue over Taiwan and the South China Sea. China's anti-ship missile programs are carried out by what's called the People's Liberation Army Rocket Force, or PLARF. The Pentagon reported the PLARF conducted a live-fire launch of 6 DF-21 anti-ship ballistic missiles into the disputed waters of the South China Sea back in July 2020. Various military analysts surmise the desert targets may be a sign of China's ongoing efforts to refine its ballistic missile program, with perhaps the U.S. and its allies in the Indo-Pacific region in mind. For the News on RT, John Huddy.
Joining me now to have a discussion on this, we have Peter Kuznick. He's a professor of history at the American University. Professor, thanks so much for joining us. You know, in the South China Sea right now, yes, we know there's tensions, but countries do this all the time, moving their ships back and forth, flexing their muscles. Is this China flexing its muscles, or is this the United States finding another reason to maybe, I don't know, go to war?
Let's hope not. Both sides have been flexing their muscles. It's created a very dangerous situation.
All right, look, before I let the rest of this video play, Carl Lawyer, how about Shem Shah? Shalom to the elect. I just want to say one thing. You see his title down here, Professor of History, American University, and he's got all these books in here. None of these books, unless he got the scriptures back there, none of these books mention prophecy. That's the main thing that's happening right now. Let me go to this real quick. Book of Matthew, chapter 24, verse 6. It says, and you shall hear wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. But it's coming though. The end of Esau, so-called world, society, they way of living is coming to an end, and it's going to come to an end by this war that's about to pop off, because it's coming, man. Let me go to another precept too as well, and I'll later play some more. If you've been paying attention to what's really going on. It's the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3. I'm going to start at verse 1 and just read on down. It says, to everything there's a season and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to get and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to cast away. A time to rend and a time to sow. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time of war and a time of peace. And for sure ain't no peace going on right now. Let's play some more.
This began, Biden promised to break with Trump's foreign policy. But in area after area, he's instead doubled down on Trump's foreign policy. The names have changed, the faces have changed, but the policies haven't changed. And this began in March in Anchorage with that first exchange between Blinken and Sullivan and China's top two foreign policy officials, in which they berated the U.S. for talking from a position of strength and said, you're no longer entitled to speak to us that way. Went through the litany of all the things the United States has done that are so offensive to world opinion. But the last 6 weeks, we've seen a ratcheting up in a very, very precarious way. Beginning September 15th, with the U.S. announcement of the AUKUS agreement with the United States, Britain, and Australia, and the sale of nuclear submarines to Australia, breaking the deal with France. Followed up on September 24th with the first summit of the Quad, the United States, Australia, South Korea, India and South Korea, South Korea and Japan, India, Japan. Followed up on September 27th with big U.S. war games in the South China Sea. And October 2nd, more war games around Okinawa. China responded on October 1st to October 4th with these massive incursions into Taiwan's air defense identification zone.
And why is all this war stuff going on, all these war games going on? Let's see this. So look at Revelation chapter 11, verse 14, and see the Most High is really using them to wipe each other out. That's why you ain't got to build no militia and all this other stuff. I try to go take Esau on head on, head on. They're going to take each other out, along with some of them other heathen nations. Now, this is the book of Revelation, chapter 11, verse 14. It says, the second war is past, and behold, the third war cometh quickly. And if you look at the time the Second World War happened, let's go to it. A little historical information. I want to get it accurately on this. Okay, let me see. Okay, World War II or the Second World War, often abbreviated as WW2 or WW2. And it says it was a global war that lasted from 1939 to 1945. Now, from that time frame up until now, that's what the scripture says. The second war was past. Behold, the third war was coming quickly. It ain't really been that long. You do the math. 2021. That's quick for a third war to pop up. A global war. Man, that's all you see going on. Global stuff on a global scale. With the Taiwan and China situation. Stuff going on in Japan with Russia. The North Korea, South Korea issue. Stuff going on in Australia. Stuff with Poland and Ukraine area. With Iran and Syria. With Iran and Israel. All these different little scenarios going on. That's because what? The third war come up quickly.
150 planes going into the zone. Very, very ominous. Then we followed up on that October 7th. The Wall Street Journal reports that U.S. Marines Special Forces have been in Taiwan training the Taiwanese in the use of American weapons.
And see, there's a video, I don't know if I still got it queued up on, I might have took it down. There was a video basically saying that Moab, the Chinese, if the U.S. go over there and arm Taiwan and train them, that they was going to nuke that shit. So, we just got to wait to see what happened for real. Because they was already making threats about it.
That same day, the CIA announces a new China mission center. Then Biden makes his statements that the United States is committed to coming to Taiwan's defense, which is not the case. Biden finally has to walk that back. Xi Jinping talks again how this is part of China, and if there's any attempt to declare independence, China will go to war over this. And then the Pentagon comes out with this report, very inflammatory report. I'm not sure if it's true or not, but they say that China, which now has 200 to 300 nuclear weapons, in 6 years will have 700 nuclear weapons and 1,000 nuclear weapons by the end of the decade. So, and then the discussion of hypersonic weapons. This is one situation after another, and we are getting closer and closer toward military confrontation. The Pentagon has run 18 war games. What would happen if the U.S. and China went to war over Taiwan, and China has won all 18 of the war games? So what does that mean? Does the United States then resort to nuclear weapons if it's been defeated?
And you know how Esau play. Esau get dirty when they get weak and get back into the corner. Let me go to this other precept real quick. I ain't gonna stress this out too much long. I just wanted to speak on a few things on this video. Go through a few precepts. It's in the book of Joel, chapter 3. Just read on down from the top. In verse 2 it says, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat, which is actually being put in motion right now. That's why we able to talk to people and they try to mention the other stuff outside of this book. The other stuff have information in it as well. But the most valuable information is prophecy, actually knowing what's going to happen before it actually happens. God says, and will lead and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel. And see, the Most High ain't forget about us. All the stuff they did us with the slavery, with them coming over, bringing the viruses and diseases over, the lynching, the burnings, destroying towns, the Jim Crow era stuff, all that stuff they gotta pay for it. And the Most High gonna make them pay for it. All the stuff from back then all the way up even to now, the stuff that they doing now. They gotta pay for all that, man. They ain't getting away scot-free. They not riding off into the sunset, going off in no bunker. They staying down there and coming back out on top. They ain't going up into space and coming back down or going to another planet and starting a new civilization and none of that. That's not going down. They gotta pay for all this. It says, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. They have cast lots for my people and have given a boy for a harlot, so the girl for wine that they might drink. Let's see, we'll go down there. Yeah, I'll just read the rest of this and I'll just end this off. It says, yeah, And what have you to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coasts of Palestine? Will you render me a recompense? And if you recompense me swiftly and speedily, I will return your recompense upon your own head, because you have taken my silver and my gold, and have carried into your temples my goodly pleasant things. The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have you sold unto the Grecians, that you might remove them far from their border. And we real far from our border. It says, behold, I will raise them out of the place where they have sold them, and will return recompense upon your head, which ties into this prophecy right here as well. Let me go to it. Because even though we can travel and stuff, you still, if you want to go to another country, you got to get citizenship, and you got to have a passport and all that too, and that take a little time just to do that. Let me see. It's in the book of Matthew chapter 24. Verse 31, then I'll jump back to that. It says, I'm going to start at verse 29. Salakia says, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give a light. Why? Because they're going to shoot all the missiles off, and all that smoke going to actually block out the sky. Just like how you got to, matter of fact, let me go to it real quick so I can find it. I ain't got to play the rest of this video. I can go to it on the side. Let me see if it's still on there. They had a live stream video of it actually. They might have stopped streaming. See if I can find that real quick. Okay. Now, this is just a volcano, so just imagine how the sky looking when you look up. Block out the sun. Or that red hue, make the moon look red. When they actually start shooting these missiles off, that's what's going to make this happen right here. It says, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give a light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, the powers of heaven shall be shaken, and then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. Then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. They shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds from one end of heaven to the other. This goes back into the book of Joel. And it says right here in verse 6, in chapter 3, the children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have you sold unto the Grecians, that you might remove them far from their border. Behold, I will raise them out of the place where you have sold them, and will return your recompense upon your own head. So, while that recompense coming down, the elect will be getting raised up and delivered. It says, I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hand of the children of Judah, and they shall sell them to the Sabians, to a people far off, for the Lord has spoken it. See, this what Esau fear right here. This what the elites fear right here. So they trying to escape while they can, but it ain't gonna work though. Now verse 9 it says, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war. Wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war come near. Let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say I'm strong. And that's what you see going on. Now the guy mentioned in the video talking about they have all these nukes. They already got, what, 300 now? They say about 6 years they have 700, in a decade they have 1,000. But see, they ain't gonna need all that, because, let me go to this real quick. I was gonna end it off, but I'll go to another one, another precept. Book of Ezekiel, chapter 38. See, Russia already on top with the nukes, so China ain't got to build all that, because they all going to make allegiance. China, Russia, Iran, Libya, all these different nations, they're going to link up just to go against Esau. It says in Ezekiel chapter 38 and verse 7, be thou prepared, and prepare for thyself, down all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be a guard unto them. So Russia gonna really be a guard to these other nations, as you see going on right now. It's clear as day, plain as day. Like the one of my favorite precepts. Let me go to it. One of my favorite precepts. It says this, what I know about heart, I just want to go to it. It's the book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 39 and verse 24. It says, as his ways are plain unto the holy, so are they stumbling blocks to the wicked. So the average person that hear this type of stuff or read the book and be like, oh, that's contradicting. It don't make sense. The white man wrote that book. All this other nonsense. They try to discredit it. But why they discredit it? Because it's stumbling blocks to the wicked, but it's plain to the holy. So if it's plain to you, it could possibly be in the good sights of the Most High. If it ain't plain to you, you might want to reevaluate what the fuck you're doing. So I just want to bring this out. Out of one, Ratazad is edifying. And call on Yahweh Shem Shalom to the elect.